Well, I can see that it's been a very, very long week for everybody. Obviously, I am, if I have read the documentation in the addenda correctly, I'm the 16th person that you have seen speak this week. So hopefully today I'm going to liven it up a bit. I'm not going to speak as long as was originally planned. I'm going to leave my presentation to only 1 hour instead of an hour and a half. And we'll have a slightly shorter question and answer session at the end as well. Primarily because I know you're tired and I know that it is hotter than the sun right now in Nagpur. So we want to make sure that everybody can pass through this without passing out, and hopefully along the way maybe I'll give you a laugh and maybe you'll find out something you didn't know. We'll see. But I want to begin today by giving you something that I think is very important, and that is an interesting comment on what we are and who we are as engineers. So as we transition to this page, I certainly hope everyone can hear me.
A very happy Engineers Day.
Thanks, Da. You remember Engineers Day and all? I've checked my email. HR also must have sent something. But I want to know, what exactly are you feeling for us engineers today? No, see, on Doctors' Day, you feel grateful to doctors because saving lives. Teachers' Day, you're thankful for teachers because enlightening lives. Engineers' Day, are you thankful, grateful? What exactly are you feeling for us? Never mind. You know, today is Sir M. Visvesvarayya's birth anniversary, no? That's why Engineers' Day. He was born engineer.
Sure. Yeah.
So I personally feel Engineers' Day is made for the world to remind us what engineering really is, what he did, and to ask us, what are you doing? It's because basically you don't know what I do. My family doesn't know what I do. She's engineer. My boss doesn't know what my contribution to the project is. How can I expect you to know what my contribution to the world is? But remember one thing. If Bangalore City could talk, Bangalore City would tell you what engineers have done to the city. I mean, what engineers have done for the city. Remember, once an engineer enters the scene changes economically, geographically. The world needs to know and accept that.
But if you had to talk about good qualities of engineers.
Good qualities. See, I believe, first of all, that engineers are more spiritual than other professionals. They're more spiritual. Because we practice detachment very early in our life. And detachment, you understand? No attachment. We are not at all attached to our education. We would have...
A very happy Engineers Day.
It's enough if we know that we are engineers. We don't want to tell the world that we are engineers. Unlike some other professionals who will put their professional title before their name everywhere, including social media.
You mean doctors?
And radio jockeys. Radio jockeys also. Which university is giving them RJ degree? But everywhere. Hi, this is RJ so and so. Email address rjsoandso@gmail.com. Instagram handle @RJ. Who gave me that degree, da? We have done 4 years of engineering. I have B degree. But the only title I am using is myself. Myself, Ramya. Aham Brahmasmi. That's all. Also, I think engineers have the least ego among all other professionals. We don't take offense at all. If you make jokes about us, our professional life, it's okay. We will not even wait for you to make jokes. We'll only go and do stand-up comedy about ourselves. I told you, no, we are not attached at all. We will quit our job to become full-time stand-up comedians. There was one film about engineers, Three Idiots. Any other professional full laba, they would have done, hey, how can you call Three Idiots and all that, da? What we did, we watched it 700 times. Because Kareena Kapoor is falling in love with an engineer. Heights.
How would you compare your work pressure with other professionals?
Pressure. See, I will not talk about work pressure. Everybody has work pressure. Let's talk about family pressure. Doctors have I'm talking about doctors because in our country, professionally speaking, doctor, engineer are like Karan Arjun. So doctors have family pressure till they become doctor. Engineers' family pressure is never ending. First, when will you become engineer? After that, when will you get a job? After that, when will you go to US? After that, when will you become startup CEO? See, that fellow's son, he's become CEO of his own company. That fellow's daughter made one app, sold it, now he's multi-millionaire. When will you get startup idea? When will I get startup idea? I'm not getting my periods properly, da. Startup idea now. When? How I'll get? Tell me. See, in this country, To get respect as a doctor, you just become a doctor, enough. But to get respect as an engineer, no, you have to become Narayan Murthy, Azim Premji, Iron Man. That Iron Man got us some respect.
What do you want for yourself in your professional life?
What I want, my wish as an engineer, one startup idea and my HR's dressing sense. That's all.
I don't know about you, but every time I watch that video, I laugh. And I laugh because underneath the joke, it's actually true. As engineers, we don't often put titles in front of our names, titles after our names. Heck, we don't always even stick to the title and the job we have. How many engineers have gone on to get MBAs? How many people out there that studied to be engineers are now in marketing and sales and HR? Engineering is kind of like the glue in my mind that holds together the rest of the business world. Without engineers, how could anything else survive? How many of you, when you were young, were the kid in the playground when somebody else had the bright idea? Ooh, let's take a piece of wood and put it on this brick and then we'll ride our bicycles over and make a ramp and jump. I have the great idea. You make it. How many of us were the kid that said, okay, I'll make it? Because we're the doers. Engineering is about doing. And it's about being the person who can find a way to say yes when everyone else is either just sitting there scratching their head or saying no. Obviously, I've had a very charmed life, ladies and gentlemen. You can see from some of the items on the screen, a PMP Emeritus at this point, an IEEE senior member. Only 8% of the IEEE members worldwide are senior. But the real thing I'm proud of, more than anything else, is at the bottom, where you can see, if your screen allows, 16 different countries that I've had the privilege to work in, including India, around my career in the 30 plus years that I've been working after college and the over 40 years that I've been working, including the time I worked before college. One of the things that is extremely important to me as we move forward into today's topic of conversations is making sure that we are talking about engineering not as some focused, finite discipline, but as what I believe we truly are, the glue that holds the rest of the world's forward progress together. So we're going to talk about a couple of things today. I'm going to try to squeeze it down and make it very quick for you. But our thoughts on the technology landscape in the next few years to come will be one of the first things we speak on. And I'll be talking to you some about my research and some about my personal experience with our company right now. Then we're going to talk about post-pandemic work environment changes. Oh, do I have some stories to tell you there. And then hiring trends in certain technology areas. We're going to focus specifically on software engineering as an example because it's a very good and highly detailed data-driven example for us all. And then we're going to kind of conclude with walking the line as educators between inclusivity and spoon feeding. And hopefully I won't hurt anyone's feelings while I'm going through that while I speak my mind. But as a business owner, there's some things I want to communicate, and we will get to those. But first, before we get on to the real meat at the end, let's talk about some stuff most all of you already know, and that is Industry 4.0. Now, we dove off into Industry 4.0 with the students earlier this year with the education process to talk about what is Industry 4.0. And of course, interconnectivity through the Internet of Things, access to real-time data, the introduction of cyber-physical machines, machines that think, or so we believe, or so we might hope, or so we may one day wish, etc. And as the industry becomes more sophisticated, how do we want to improve the time, cost, quality triangle, the iron triangle we call in the business world? This is a move from reactive thinking and reactive business ownership and management to a predictive, proactive approach. But there's an Achilles heel in this approach. You can only predict using AI but you already possess data for the AI to review. The ability to make the move forward from diagnostic analytics, which was the Industry 3.0, to predictive analytics at Industry 4.0, is only going to go so far with AI and other tools that are non-human mind rendered, because they can only reference the data that already exists. They cannot infer the future. So one of the things you'll see me talk about later is, am I afraid of AI? There are some people out there that are just absolutely convinced that robots and AI are going to take over the world. Oh my gosh, the humans will become the second-class species of the world. Really? AI is here to help us, just like calculators were here to help our parents. The attitude that we have towards AI should be nothing more than a tool, and therefore we want to make it the best tool we can. But predictive analytics can only take us so far. Just like, ladies and gentlemen, when you got out of school, some of you might be too young to remember this, but I have gray hair, what little is still there. And I remember then when I decided in 10th standard that I wanted to be an engineer, I had to go out and buy this big, huge book called the Handbook of Chemistry and Physics. You'll notice that the date here says 1980-1981. Guess when I was in 10th standard? There you go. And at that time, in order for us to pursue engineering as a chosen field for college, we were expected to buy this book. And I think some people on the side thought that since we were all geeks and we all wanted to grow up and be mathematicians and scientists and engineers, that a book this big would also come in handy doing a little weightlifting every once in a while to give us some exercise. The fact of the matter is that the Handbook of Chemistry and Physics and all of its knowledge is now online. We've made this huge move forward from having information in piles at our feet to information at our fingertips. So where do we go from here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to spend a few moments with you being a little bit silly, because that's the kind of person I am. And I want to talk about some of my crazy and mostly obvious predictions of what's going to happen in the near future with engineering. Things that I think are going to come to pass. Number one, finding a way to store energy in a single unit battery that measures output in terawatts will finally make wind and solar energy viable as standalone power generations options, even though they'll never fully replace other sources. This is something that we need to be focused on and researching going down the road. Oh, wait a minute. So sorry. Apparently this has already been done with terawatt lasers. And the IEEE has taken it to the point where it's now putting together the IEEE 28000 2022 standard on how large-scale batteries can be delivered for power use with inconsistent power sources such as solar and wind. So maybe what this needs is no longer somebody with a bright idea, some inventor, somebody that has a wonderful notion of how to make money. Maybe this needs a few engineers who can take the concept, squeeze it down, mold it, make it financially viable, make it qualitatively viable, make it time deliverable viable, and bring it to the masses. That does sound like a job for an engineer, doesn't it? So let me think about my next great prediction. I think tidal energy is the next great avenue of cleaner and safer consistent power in our world. And we need to be working on this. Oh, wait a minute. There's a note here. Apparently, the Scots have already done this. The MyGen project in Scotland started a number of years ago, and in 2020 started delivering full-time power into the UK power grid. The theory's proven. The process works. It's providing power into the grid on a consistent basis. And as long as we maintain the equipment and there's water in the ocean, and the moon revolves around the earth, and the earth revolves around the sun, it will generate power. Maybe what we should be doing there is getting a bunch of engineers together to figure out how we take that project, shrink it down, make it financially viable, make it qualitatively better, and bring several thousand of these things to the world to start generating power on a regular basis using the Earth's own gravity and rotation. Sounds like a job for an engineer. So let's think about another great prediction that I might make that's probably very obvious. I believe Tesla was right. The ultimate power on Earth is gravity and magnetism, and someone much smarter than me should discover how to harness this for worldwide energy. Oh, wait. Apparently, there's a company out there called Earth Energy Corporation in the United States that's invented a product called the Earth Engine that actually does this using an invention called unbalanced magnets. Something that I never thought was possible, but apparently is. And these unbalanced magnets have created an Earth-based magnetism and gravity engine that generates power up to 25 kilowatts. And it's about the size of a home. And it's working today. So let's think about that. Power simply from the magnetism and rotation of the Earth. Sounds to me like we need to take this product that cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to build for one small house, and improve its quality, reduce its size, reduce its time to market, reduce its cost, and make it viable for the masses. Sounds like a job for engineers to me. And lastly on this page, I wonder, would converting from current AC and DC engines in electric cars, like Teslas for example, converting from their current DC or AC components to high capacitance, high voltage electrical pulse engines increase car battery life substantially enough to make long interstate travel possible without recharges? One of the Achilles heels of electric cars right now is most of them can't leave the town without needing a recharge, and very few, if any, can make a long overland journey. Electric high capacitance, high voltage pulse engines could increase the battery life and the power life of the battery so long as to allow overland trips from Nagpur to Mumbai without too much problem. Is this a dream? Well, I thought it was till I started doing a little research and found out that the Chinese have already created and got functional and shown an electric plasma jet engine that's been tested in the atmosphere, and the electric iodine thruster has been tested in space at the ISS. So this is not so much a prediction now as the need of the hour to take the technology, reduce its component cost, improve its quality, compress its timeline to delivery, and find a way to roll it out to the masses. Sounds like a job for an engineer to me. So, what other crazy ideas does this Ferengi have on his mind for us all? Well, some people seem to be afraid of artificial intelligence, like I told you before. They think it's going to take over the world. They think that we should fear the robots. Oh my God. But ladies and gentlemen, looking at this purely from a business point of view and from an engineering point of view, artificial intelligence will never be more than the next step in the evolution of computers in terms of doing what we tell it to do, until, in my opinion, the human brain's nonlinear decision-making power of emotion and empathy can be mathematically modeled. Until we can come up with a mathematical model that describes effectively emotion, AI is going to be nothing more than a more advanced tool than the computers we have today on helping humans do what the humans program it to do. So I'm not afraid of AI. What I'm afraid of is other people's fear of AI. because I think engineers are in the perfect place at this day and stage to take AI and to begin to mold it, squeeze it down, reduce its time to completion, reduce its cost, and get it into more things around the world and around your neighborhood. Lastly, my last crazy and probably very obvious prediction: I believe that post-pandemic bioengineering jobs are going to continue to thrive and be decently funded for exploration for at least the remainder of this generation, and probably the next generation as well, well into the latter half of the 21st century. Why? Very simple, folks. Human beings have a tendency to overcompensate for what they fear. And in the last 2 years, do you know of anything that human beings around the world have feared more than the pandemic? The push, the money that's been spent, the huge economic crunch that went into creating very, very finite and very, very focused remedies for our pandemic in the last few years. Billions of US dollars, however you want to make, trillions of INR. And yet, it's only created solutions for basically one disease. Diseases are going to continue to come to us as a human species. And as long as we continue to have empathy for members of our species who don't have all of the ability to fight off the diseases themselves, we're going to need to continue to push biochemistry, bioengineering. It's going to have to grow. It's going to have to become, guess what? Better quality, reduce cycle time to delivery. We're going to have to find ways to cut costs, and we're going to have to find ways to get it out to the masses faster. These are jobs for engineers. So as we look at the potential of engineering in the future, I am nothing but optimistic that the glue, as I said before, that holds the rest of the world's brains together, the engineers, are going to become even more valuable and even more necessary than they are now. So let's talk a little bit, after these crazy little pretty obvious predictions of mine, about the work environment associated with the post-pandemic office. Something that many of us have lived through. I know that in our office I certainly have. And let's talk about what this future might look like a little bit. For the last 20 years, progressive companies have been experimenting with hybrid work environments and work at home already. For the last 15 years at PricewaterhouseCoopers and at SunGuard Availability Services, including the time when I was the country head in Pune, India, we had fully functional work at home and hybrid solutions already in place. And this was 2012, 2013, 14, because we were an IT disaster recovery company. So we planned for worst case scenarios for IT, and we had functioning solutions in place 10 years ago. So when the pandemic happened, companies that were forward thinking, that had been thinking ahead of their disaster recovery, of their disaster preparedness, already had the technology to make these moves. So why was it such a big deal? Well, while many multinationals were prepared, while many large technology companies were prepared, there were a lot of companies that just simply had plunged their heads in the sand and hadn't bothered to move forward, because if it isn't broken, don't fix it. They didn't see a problem, so they spent no time thinking about how to solve that problem until the problem was on their doorstep. And then the panic you've seen in the business world trying to make work at home and hybrid work for everyone. A self-created disaster that didn't have to be one. So the pandemic caused this explosion of what normally would be slow progressive steps, and it forced adoption at light speed. Many companies couldn't handle the move. The number of companies that have gone out of business, bankrupt, died during the pandemic has hit 10-year highs in most of the world. But by some estimates today in the US, and what I'm finding is it's becoming more like that in India as well, up to 70% of the workers are likely to request either work at home or hybrid work environments going forward, at least for the next few years. And while I wrote on this text that India has a somewhat lower percentage than we're seeing in the US, I'm finding that it's not that much lower. I'm still expecting that the remaining factor on that will continue to be higher than pre-pandemic. And in Codebase, for example, let me give you our real world as we see it today. Approximately 30% of our staff have specifically requested to work at home permanently. They would prefer to never come back into the office ever again. They believe that they're effective at working at software development and code creation for their customers in the standalone, isolated bubble of their homes. I'll challenge that notion here a little bit later. But oddly enough, we've also found that an equal 30% of our staff are begging to come back into the office. They are asking us, can we work? If we don't have an office, can you at least let us go to a local workplace? Can we go to a rework or some other location where we can at least have a desk outside our home? Too much noise. I can't concentrate. My mother, my father, my grandparents are constantly asking me to do things. My family makes noise. There's no place for me to work. I can't focus. I can't have conference calls. My internet connection isn't high enough availability to handle video conferencing and voice conferencing and access to the servers and the coding engine and all at the same time. So oddly enough, within our own business, and I'm finding this repeated in many of my friends and colleagues' businesses elsewhere throughout India, the number of people who want to work at home permanently is roughly equal to the number of people who want to get back into the office. And what about that 40% in the middle? Hybrid. Lots of people work in the office 3 days a week, but can we work from home Mondays and Fridays? What's the big driver for most of these people? Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest driver we see out in the field shouldn't surprise anyone. They hate the commute. And let's be honest, who doesn't? Let's assume we're living in Bangalore, and one of the worst places to have a commute in all of India. And you get 8 hours of sleep, so there's a third of your day gone. You're supposed to be at work for 8 hours as well, so that only leaves you about 8 hours to play with. Well, if you're spending 2 of those hours eating meals when you're not at work, so that brings you down to 6 hours. And then if you're spending 2 hours going to work in your traffic every day and 2 hours coming home from work in traffic every day, there goes 4 of your 6 hours, leaving you a grand total of 2 hours to have your life. Everything you want to do in life. Your chores, your family, your personal entertainment, your learning, your progress, your growth, your marriage, your children, crammed into 1 or 2, maybe 3 hours a day max. Of course they hate the commute. Eliminating the commute all by itself dramatically improves their perception of their life and how well they're living it. I bet there's not a single person in this conversation here with me today that doesn't feel the same way. I know I feel the same way. I'm now living back in the United States after living several years in India, and I feel this way. And our traffic isn't near as bad as what I experienced when I lived in Pune full time. So, dealing with the commute, getting that time back in the life, is, in my opinion, one of the most important principal drivers for why people are taking advantage of the pandemic to want to push for hybrid work environments and permanent work at home. So, if we found ways to reduce the commute, that would reduce the pressure. Sounds like a job for an engineer to me. So as we move forward, our 2 biggest productivity losses that we see with companies that have made the move to 100% work at home, is poor virtual communication and technical issues. We don't have to talk about the tech issues. Everybody here has experienced them. But what is this poor virtual communication? Well, the ability to pick up the phone and call someone hasn't really changed. But the ability to have a neighbor to neighbor, seat to seat, cubicle to cubicle conversation with a colleague about a very specific targeted subject that they should be knowledgeable of as well, where you can spend 1 or 2 minutes, share information because of the innate learning and innate knowledge they already have on the subject, quickly ask a question, quickly get an answer, and move on, very often gets lost in the virtual world of work at home. You're not together. You're not sharing the same information at the same pace. You've completely lost virtually all of the non-verbal communications that the human species relies on so much. And on top of all of that, now you're competing for focus. You're competing to see how you can keep your eye on the ball amidst all the distractions of home. So there's some companies that are going to be excessively resistant to allowing work at home as a permanent solution, or even hybrids. And the 3 reasons that I see amongst my own peers in business that are living this every day are: number 1, the status quo. That is how we have always done it. And they can't get past that is how we've always done it. Stuck in the past, can't move forward. In my opinion, number 1 reason why companies are challenged by and resistant to any amount of hybrid work at home. Number 2, confirmation bias. What do I mean by confirmation bias? I mean something that every one of us does at least sometime in our lives. We formulate an idea. We have a belief. We think we know what the answer is, but we know we should be open-minded about it. So we say we're going to be open-minded. We're going to go seek data. We're going to analyze the situation and see if this work-at-home thing is something we should do long-term. But because in our minds we're already leaning one direction, the moment we find one piece of data that matches what's already in our head, it confirms what we believe, and the bias kicks in, and we stop looking for the rest of the data that would give us a more full answer. I see confirmation bias in everything we do in the industry, and it has a big impact on people's decisions, especially business leaders' decisions about where we're going with work at home over the next couple of years. And the last thing is normalcy bias. Normalcy bias is a fancy word for saying, what's she doing? Okay, I'm going to do that. Oh, 3 out of 4 people think that we should work in the office. Okay, let's work in the office. That's normalcy bias. We're going to stick to what we think is normal, what the majority are doing, what we believe is right because that's what everybody else is doing. It's kind of half status quo and half confirmation. And it's the worst half of both. These are some of the mental blind spots and the reasons for them that we see amongst businesses trying to make the decision about forcing their people to come back into the office or to allow them to work at home and work in a hybrid model. And so I tend in my company to use what we call 3FP: fear, faith, focus, perception. The business leader or the decision maker fears a loss of quality, a loss of business integrity, a loss of money. And so they choose to have faith in the past, have faith in tools that constantly focus on time sheeting, managing your time, looking over your shoulder, making sure you're doing what they expect. And they do this so they can enforce focus, to make sure the person is focusing on the work that they're being paid for, as opposed to being dealt with by a child in their bedroom, or someone wanting to eat a meal, or the person who rang the doorbell who wants to sell them insurance at the front door. And all of this comes down to perception. We perceive value, so we go for it. Businesses perceive a loss of value by letting their people work at home because they believe they can't focus, because they have no faith, because they fear that the person is not going to deliver their value for pay. Now, these are one of those things that we can't necessarily just snap our fingers and get over. But ladies and gentlemen, there are some jobs in this world, and not just one or two, lots of jobs, that'll be perfectly successful in a permanent work-at-home environment. But there's also a lot of jobs out there that cannot ever be successful in a work-at-home environment. They require human interaction. And let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen, we are all human beings. And whether we like it or not, the human species is designed to be a communal species. We are better in groups. We are better in teams. We are better together than we are separated. So, what are we going to look at for some of the competitive advantages for the future for the companies who can find a way to make hybrid work within their organization? They're going to need to have team-led hybrid models. The team is going to need to be able to self-report, self-correct, self-manage, self-motivate. It's not easy to do. You can't just snap your fingers and do things the way you've always done them and have that accomplished. It requires work. But moving the office layout from rows of desks to more collaborative areas and conference rooms is a proven solution to get people to want to come back into the office. Been there, done that, have the proof, own the t-shirt. At SunGard, we did this in 2015 and 2016 to encourage people to collaborate better. And we had a very odd side effect. People not coming to work due to illness or other excuses went down. And this was even before the pandemic. So why would moving from rows of desks and functional cubes to collaboration areas and conference rooms as a place for people to interact and work have the odd side effect of making people want to stay and come to the office more often? Human beings work better as teams. Show some faith, and the people will usually reward you. You also are going to have to move from timesheets to productivity logs. The concept of timesheeting only measures what people are at. It doesn't actually measure what they're doing. Productivity logs are the way of the future, and they are the way of now, in terms of finding ways to measure how the staff and the people in your company, in your office, in your college, in your dormitory are actually focusing on getting what has been asked of them done, as opposed to simply checking boxes. I'm present, I'm present, I'm present. Companies have to learn, just like colleges and schools and elementary schools, etc., learned years and years ago, that it's a completely different thing to check the box that someone's present in the classroom versus actually participating in learning. It's equally a very different thing for someone to be at the office and sitting in their cube on their timesheet versus actually being productive and making the company and their team and their customers win. And we have to move from annual performance reviews to weekly or monthly evaluations and checkpoints. Weekly for small projects, monthly for long-term assignments. Now, what's the biggest hindrance to the annual performance review process moving to a monthly effort? Paperwork. Managers don't want to do the paperwork. It's time consuming. It involves a lot of interaction with the staff. You have to ask a lot of questions. You have to find out other data sources. You want to ask the person how they think they're doing. You need to ask the client how they think the person's doing. You need to ask the manager how they think the person's doing compared to what the client and the individual said. Then you have to put all this data together if you're doing the job right, and then you present an overall picture to the employee of how their performance looks. It's cumbersome, but it is the modern way things have been done. But there's new tools that are coming out, and the pandemic have pushed these tools so that feedback can be done on demand. When a client wants to present you feedback, it's no harder to produce it in a moment's notice than it is to go out to Twitter and put in a comment. Tools like that exist. 515, for example, is one that we're looking at right now to move our own company away from the annual performance assessment process to monthly evaluations and checkpoints. And the side benefit of this is, not only does it make the administration easier, not only does it reduce all the paperwork, but when it comes time to actually figure out annually how much the raise is going to be and what the actual overall performance is, you have half a dozen to a dozen points of input, as opposed to one a year. We all want input to know when we are not doing the right thing so that we can get better. We all equally want input to know when we are doing the right thing so that we'll continue doing it and enjoy the pat on the back that comes with it. How much better is it to get that information in a month than it is to wait until the end of the year to find it out? So there's obvious benefits that need to be made and can very well be made with this move to the office of the future. And the office of the future doesn't have to be years away. It doesn't have to be even 1 year away. It can be now. The tools exist. The processes are out there. So you can make this move. So when looking at how many people will successfully make this move, I've already said before, but I'll reiterate it again here. About 30% is about the max that we're seeing in the world right now, at least in the thinking jobs, coding, engineering, the non-touch, non-assembly line, non-manual labor type work, for fully work remote and fully work in the office. And that 40% in the middle seems to be the magic middle for the hybrid models. And that's where we're spending most of our time out in the industries trying to figure out how we're going to make hybrid work for the coming years. So, one of the things I want to leave you with, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not something that I think is all that funny, but it's something that I find I'm spending lots of time teaching students who are coming out of college that don't understand this. And I'd really like to put the bug in your ear as educators about the possibility of adding this as part of the curriculum. Progress is not an arrow shooting for the stars. It's a wheel that spins around the time, cost, quality triangle. Need me to prove it? Pretty simple. In the 1980s, we were dealing with mainframe computers, and in order to get costs down, we had a single humongous computer that cost a lot of money, and then we would put virtual terminals on it in order to give multiple people access so that multiple people had access to the quality that this huge cost would create. Well, once we created this huge opportunity and this cost, then we moved from mainframes to virtual terminals. Then, because we needed something that would work faster and not have to wait on the availability of the mainframe and your ability to access the virtual terminal, comes the invention of the PC. The PC comes along, and all of a sudden people can do anything they want to. And these things have significantly less cost than the items that came before. But we've lost a significant amount of quality because everybody's working in their own vacuums. So what do? We invent networks. so that people can share their data. So now the quality can go up because we're sharing our knowledge between the machines, but now because each one of these machines is disparate and we're having to have network connecting all these boxes individually, we're spending more money and it takes more time for us to collaborate. So what do? We go to big virtual desktops. We go to large scale servers. We build 3-tier models, but now it's getting extremely costly. So how do we control the cost? Now we create clouds. And as you can see here, as the model continues, it goes round and round and business moves forward. I virtually, in the last minute and a half, followed you through the 40-year evolution of IT on the computer systems and showed you progress is not a shooting star. It is a spinning wheel. And our graduates need to understand that when they join the workforce, they are a piece of that wheel. They can choose to just be a piece that gets moved by the wheel, just sitting there doing what they're asked, or they can choose to be a thought leader. They can choose to push. They can be someone who moves the wheel. I challenge you as leaders in your community, as educators, to consider how you can put the bug in your students' heads about being a piece of the wheel that moves it, as opposed to being a piece of the wheel that gets moved. Now, as we move forward, and I get the annotations cleared off the screen, let's talk about a few hiring trends that we see coming forward. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I believe very strongly, and I'll say it again later in the presentation, but I believe coding has reached a point in its evolution where it is now ubiquitous. Meaning, when you were going to college, you couldn't do advanced mathematic problems quickly without a calculator. I believe engineering in all of its forms has now reached a point where it can't be effectively done without some knowledge of coding. And as such, I am a firm believer that every engineer that graduates from every college and university everywhere in the world needs to have a basic understanding and knowledge of coding, its process, and at least one and preferably more languages. So what am I showing you here? In front of you, you see what the IEEE believes for the 3rd year in a row and 2021 is the most common coding language in the world, Python. Why is Python so popular? Because, in my opinion, it's designed for engineers. It's designed to reduce the cycle time on developing blocks of code that perform highly repetitive, incrementally improving tasks. And it's designed to do it with less quality checks, better QC, less memory, and faster compile times than some of the older software products like C++, Visual C, Visual Basic, etc. So, this is not just my belief, by the way. Some of you, I'm sure, are aware that I've given some of these talks to your students over the course of the year. This subject has come up more than one time during those talks. I've been asked directly by your students during these discussions, should I learn coding? What coding should I learn? Which language would you recommend that I go and learn? And the fact of the matter is, Python sits at the top. But it's not the only one. As you can see, Java, C, C++, JavaScript, C#, React, Go, HTML, Swift. These make up the top 10, and the top 10 hasn't really changed much in the last 3 years in terms of the popularity amongst engineers by the IEEE spectrum on coding. Now, other than Python, look at the top 5. There's more old languages in there than there are new. Why is that? Well, it should be very obvious to you, because most businesses aren't out there trying to reinvent the wheel. They have a wheel. The wheel works, and when the wheel breaks, they want to fix the wheel they have instead of spending huge amounts of money to put in a new wheel. And that's actually not surprising. If you're riding your two-wheeler to work every day and you have a blowout on your two-wheeler, do you buy a new two-wheeler? No. You go and take the tire to a tire shop and you get the tire fixed, reinflated, and you continue to ride the two-wheeler you have. Well, guess what? Businesses use this exact same logic to come to the exact same conclusion on multi-million-dollar, multi-billion rupee projects, because in the end, common sense is the best way to make a decision on these things. And if what you have isn't broke, why spend oodles of money fixing it? So old languages, like you see right here in front of you, are still some of the most popular that your students are going to find in the marketplace. And I absolutely believe that they should be learning these things. So let's take a quick look, ladies and gentlemen, at software engineering salaries that come with this kind of work. Now, I'm not going to go into the details on this slide. It's very, very busy. You may wonder why I put such a busy slide on here. I decided not to change a slide that I used just 2 weeks ago as part of our company's determination of what our current market trends are in these various areas, as we were determining how much money we were going to pay in salary increases to our own staff. You're getting it right here in front of you. These are the basics, and these are the averages. They come from places like Indeed, Naukri, PayScales. I believe another significant source of the information was, I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, and I'm not going to spend time trying to, but there were about 7 or 8 different information sources that went into this, and strangely enough, they all come to basically the same conclusions. Some of the fastest growing jobs in India are in software development and software engineering. There's various and different kinds of engineering, whether you focus on quality assurance, or you focus on operational development, or you're down here in the security world, which is a very fast growing market right now, or you're into what we now call full stack development. I have to laugh, ladies and gentlemen, at full stack development, because remember my wheel analogy about how progress is a wheel? When I had hair and was young, I was writing code and was responsible for the front-end GUI, the middleware, the application logic, the saving of the files, the database that was utilized, because it was all a standalone system. Then, as things started to expand, we went to tiered models and we broke the user interface away from the application layer. And then we broke the database away from the system. And we started having different people focus on things. But guess what? That's gotten too expensive now in the current market, and it requires faster output than multiple people all having to get on the same page can accomplish. So what are we seeing in the market now? We're starting to see that we want engineers, software engineers, who understand how the graphic user interface talks to the application layer, which interfaces with the database in order to create the outcome. So here we are 40 years later from when I started writing code, and now we have these full stack developers, and everybody's all a-gaga about full stack. It's the next great thing. It's a return to 40 years ago. But you had to be writing code back then to see it. And I just kind of smile, because it's not a shooting star. The wheel has come around. And technology forces the wheel to come around at regular and repetitive intervals. And here we are again, with the full stack developer being the next proof of that logic. Some things that are big for our new hires, so I'm sure that you're interested in being able to tell them, no, for a software developer, software engineering, outside of the security realm, 4 to 5 lakhs, maybe 6 lakhs, depending on the side of the company, is still a fairly common number in terms of starting salaries that we're seeing out in the field. The bigger the company, the lower the amount. It'll be closer to 4. The smaller the company, the bigger amount, because the small companies have to compete to get that talent. So they really have no choice in most cases to compete against the big boys and girls other than offering more salary. So you're seeing right here on the page different information sources laid out for you that come to the same conclusion. Between 4 and 5 lakhs for software engineering, for example, is the new norm in India. Now, if you compare that against the big people, Tata, Capgemini, Cisco. Cisco is way out there because what do they do? Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is hot. Cybersecurity is expensive. Cybersecurity is very important, and it deals with a lot of risk. Therefore, those people are being paid much more than the other software engineering disciplines. But you can see, once again, any way you slice this, you get to the same information and you get to the same norms. Roughly about 4 to 6 lakhs starting salaries, software engineering, out in the field. This is what you're experiencing in India right now, depending on location, depending on size of company that's hiring you. So that's information you can take to the bank and tell your students, because that's what's going on in the field today. Now, where are we going in terms of significant software engineering career paths? Well, ladies and gentlemen, data science is all a gaga. People who can take that data and deal with big data are in demand. And why are they in demand? Look down here at number 3. Because the machine learning engineers, the people that are doing artificial intelligence, need all that data in order to try to put some kind of artificial intelligent logic together in order for the systems to show any remote ability in order to learn and to adapt. And in the middle, what do we have? Cybersecurity engineering. Hot now, hot last year, going to be hot for at least the next 4 or 5 years until major artificial intelligence systems come out that can mimic the repetitive human logic of the cybersecurity engineers' individual performance today. So, what's going to make cybersecurity not be hot anymore? It's going to be artificial intelligence. But how is artificial intelligence going to win? Because it's got to get enough data in order to function. And where's the data going to come from? The data scientist. So this big 3 are feeding each other right now in the marketplace in terms of availability and the opportunities in the market for jobs. Now, obviously, here in the middle, you have the full stack, as we talked about before, the new hot, that just makes me smile, and Python, which we've already talked about, and then Java developers and cloud engineers kind of round out your top 6, top 7 in terms of what we're seeing in the field right now. Now, this data is an amalgamation from Indeed, from Naukri, from PayScales, and also it's been QC'd against our own company, and our company is seeing exactly the same thing. So this isn't just some data that came out of the wall off some website that's not to be trusted. We've validated this against the own hiring practices we're seeing in the field now. So let's talk about software engineering salaries in India and my biggest concern. My biggest concern right now is that software engineering salaries and some engineering salaries in general are beginning to increase at a rate that is untenable long term for India. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a joke for me. I've spent the greater portion of my working career developing a love for India and a love for its people and a love for what the intercultural relationships can accomplish between the 2 largest democracies in the world. And quite frankly, I'm becoming a little bit concerned. The annual salary increase expectations in your large MNCs now are at about 15%, give or take 5%, and for your small companies, it's in the 20 to 25% range. Kids that are out there today are getting 3 to 5 years experience under their belt, and then job shopping for 50 to 100% salary increases. In the United States, over the course of a 30-year career, the average software engineer will increase their salary by 100%. In Nigeria, it's probably about 250%. In Costa Rica, it's about 200%. In India, it's 400%, and in some cases, they want 500%. I'm starting to get concerned. the trajectory of salary increase and the expectation of our kids that every year, no matter how bad the economy is, I'm expecting 15%. No matter what happened in the industry in terms of the quality of that particular position, I'm expecting my number. No matter how good I did at being a good employee or contributing to the success of the company, I need. It's starting to become childish, and it's starting to be concerning. Do I tell it to the kids? As softly as I can, sometimes directly in certain performance reviews. I had to have a performance review like that just 24 hours ago. But I'm telling it to you as educators because you have the ability to influence the minds before the minds jump into the job market. And I want you to know that this is happening. Something else that's happening out in the field that's becoming more prevalent that concerns me greatly, that I think educators can have a huge influence on: ethics. We are seeing right here on this screen accepting jobs and holding them until the joining day, only to drop them for other jobs with no expectation of penalty and no ethics regarding appropriate behavior. This is becoming the norm. We are seeing kids come out of college who think this is perfectly acceptable. Ladies and gentlemen, as educators, we not only have a responsibility to educate them on what's in the textbook, we also have a responsibility to educate them on what is acceptable in life. And as a board member of a business in India that cares very greatly to see this business grow and succeed in India for the jobs that it can bring to India, I'm beginning to get concerned a little that we may be moving towards a tipping point where companies are going to have to start changing their hiring strategies because they can no longer trust the ethics of the Indian software engineer. Now that's a powerful and it's a strong statement. I don't make it lightly. This is important stuff. We need to focus on it. We need to make sure as educators we are not only teaching to the textbooks, but we're making sure our students understand ethics as well. What is acceptable behavior? What is not? So I know I'm beating you up on this and I'm spending some time on this subject, but it's very important. And we absolutely want to make sure that it's something that we consider as we proceed forward with our duty and responsibility as educators. And even though I'm not a professor, I look at myself in the same role as you. I have to educate the people that work for me in my organization, just like you have to educate the students that are in your classroom. In the end of the day, all of us have one job that's exactly the same: the passing on of our knowledge to the next generation so the next generation is better than we were. This is not better. We need to be concerned about this. When I compare salaries to Nigeria, Costa Rica, the US, the math indicates that this huge salary increase expectation and this job shopping for bigger and bigger percentages, if it continues unchecked, we could be looking at a bubble that bursts in much less than 10 years, possibly as few as 5, where it would be cheaper for your multinationals to go to another country to get their work done instead of India. I don't want to see that happen. I don't think you do either. And we have an obligation to make sure that we put some common sense and reason into the brains of these kids while we're educating them on the topics in the textbooks. So I'm going to end my conversation today as quickly as I can about the line as educators between inclusivity and spoon feeding that I see and that I live myself every day. The inclusivity that I'm seeing in the world is extremely powerful and making some wonderful headway. Expanding engineer careers for women, for minorities, for practically everyone out there. And just as important, the increase in ideas that come with the increase in thought that's brought on by this increase in diversity. It's a very positive thing. But at the same time, I am concerned about a few things that I see. Some of this is happening a lot in the United States, and I desperately hope we don't see it in India. Being more concerned about the mental health and happiness of the candidate than their competence. Now, I'm not saying that we have to be hard on our students. I'm not saying that we have to be unfair. But at the same time, sooner or later, hard happens. Adversity happens. If they have no ability to handle it whenever they get out into the real world, whose fault is that? Well, I, as the business owner, can't afford to tell my client, I'm sorry, your code doesn't work and you're not going to get what you paid us for on time because the individual who is working on this had a bad day. I think you know how far that'll work. And I think it's one of these things that we have to be sure that we're focusing on with our students going forward. Being more concerned about our graduation rates than the quality of the graduates. This is something that's really becoming a problem in the United States. And I see it having a negative impact on the number of engineers that we're outputting in the United States over the next few years. And I'm not talking 10, 20 years from now. I'm talking about the next 3 or 4. We're going through a period of time of cultural upheaval in the United States right now. And companies are going to be impacted by that cultural upheaval. Who are they going to turn to when the quality of the graduates in the U.S. no longer meets their needs? My hope is that they'll be turning to the students that you as educators are putting out into the world right now. That is exactly my hope. But we have to be sure that some of these mistakes that are happening now in the United States don't cross the ocean and start happening in India. Being more concerned about the numbers we graduate than the quality of the people we choose to put our names on. And of course, teaching only what's in the textbook and failing to teach the students how to handle adversity. By the time they get to me and they're out in the real world trying to earn money and trying to create a life for themselves, if they haven't learned how to handle adversity, it's too late. If they can't figure out, my boss didn't like my work today, I need to learn from this and do a better job tomorrow, and instead going home cry to mommy that boss is unfair, it's too late for me to correct that behavior. It's too late for me to improve the engineer that has come to me in the business world. This is something that has to be corrected at their education points during their life. Do their parents owe a responsibility to this? Of course. Their educators owe a responsibility of this too. So I point this out because we absolutely, as educators, you have to do it. The people in lower education have to do it. People in my company have to do it. I have to do it. We have to make sure that we're teaching these people how to handle adversity. Because if they can't handle adversity, they can't learn from their mistakes. And if they can't learn from their mistakes, then all we've created is an entire generation of people we're going to have to spoon feed for their entire lives. We can't afford to do that as educators and mentors of the next generation. I'm going to share with you my final thought, and it's a story that is very dear to my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that I have had a wonderfully successful career. And I don't say that to brag. I consider myself one of the most blessed human beings I've ever met. I have had a wonderful, blessed life. It's allowed me to work in 16 different countries. It's allowed me to live in 5 of them. It's allowed me to have hundreds of friends and people that I love and appreciate in India and other countries like Indonesia and Britain and Germany and Switzerland, Mexico, Canada, Argentina, Costa Rica. But the best thing that ever happened to me in my life was something that I absolutely hated at the time and I absolutely love now. In my second year as an electrical engineering student at the University of Texas, I walked into my sophomore logic and mathematics class for linear algebra. After 6 weeks in that course, the professor called me to his office and told me to my face, "Son, you need to get out of electrical engineering." Well, I was shocked. I'd only wanted to be an electrical engineer all my life. Why would this professor look me in the eye and tell me you can't be what you want to be? Fortunately, instead of being arrogant about it and saying, "Just take my word for it," he showed me these facts. I was in a classroom where I had only achieved an 80% score on the college entrance math exam. I had only gotten 80% of those questions right. Every other student in that class except one had gotten 100% of the questions right. I was the bottom of the scale. He taught on the bell curve, and I was never going to beat the bell curve to get quality grades in his class. It took me years to realize he was doing me a favor. Instead of flunking me out of school, making me feel like a failure, he was telling me right up front, "You are not good enough for this. Go somewhere else." He didn't tell me I couldn't be an electrical engineer. I just couldn't do it in his class because I was competing against the best in the world. People with perfect SAT scores, ACT scores. Couldn't do it. I hated that professor for a year, maybe 2. But suddenly, towards the end of my college experience, I suddenly realized the value of what he had taught me. The adversity, the anger, the upset that it brought to me. The greatest gift he could have given me was to tell me I wasn't good enough. Because it drove me to improve myself. And the spirit of that drive has stuck with me for my entire life. He, more than any other professor I had, made me who I am. And did he do it because he patted me on the back and told me everything was going to be all right? No. Did he do it because he thought that, well, I can't be mean to this student because I might hurt their feelings? No. He hurt my feelings. He told me the truth. He laid down a pile of adversity right in front of me and told me, "Figure out your way over the top of it." And it's made me the man I've become. And I love him for it. And I'm telling you right now, as professors and educators in this industry, we can't mollycoddle and spoon feed these kids. We have to teach them how to deal with adversity. And the best way to do that is eyeball to eyeball honesty. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, I've hit you kind of hard here at the end, but I've hit you with what I believe is extremely important for the near future of what's going to happen and what we need from our educators in the next few years in India, in the US, in the world. Opportunities abound for the engineering fields. They may be at the highest levels in recorded history for power, for software, for biochemical, for cybersecurity, for AI. There's no good reason why you can't find a job as an engineer if you're trying. Number 2, the post-pandemic world, some work from home is here to stay, but hybrid is most likely the scenario the average employee will be dealing with or have the opportunity to work in for the next few years. Coding is becoming as universal as the calculator, and I recommend that every engineering discipline require at least one course in coding in order to graduate going forward. I absolutely believe it's become as ubiquitous as a calculator. Universities need to make sure that practical application coursework is included for their students in ethics and real-world interpersonal skills, not just the technical disciplines. And college and universities and businesses like mine have a moral obligation at the last opportunity before the real world hits these kids to teach the basic life skills of how to deal with life's adversity. So, if not us, who? If not now, when? If not at your university or college, where? And if not for the forward progress of the human species, then why? Thank you for your patience in listening to me. I appreciate your time. I hand the floor back to the professor.
Thank you so much, sir, for throwing light on the current scenario and the requirements in the coming years. I'm sure you have definitely enlightened the participants to mold their work considering the requirements that will come up in the near future. Now I would like to take questions from the participants. Participants, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and I'll convey them to David, sir. Participants are requested to put the questions in the chat box.
Hello, David sir. I have one question.
Absolutely, Dr. Belsaki.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. As a student, if we want to pursue the career path as a software development or a software testing, so which one is better? And if development is the goal, how the student should evolve or develop himself?
Very good question. I see both being very valuable in the industry, but it's very, very common and has been all of my career for people who want to eventually be software developers and full stack developers and team lead managers in software development. Being quality assurance, being a tester is an excellent starting point for the freshers out of college. Now, does that mean that they focus specifically on QA? No, we want them to know at least 2 and preferably 3 languages before they leave if they want to be a software developer in their life. But QA is where you hone your skill. It's where you prove your worth. And if you're good at QA, the engineers and the developers who you're QAing will latch onto you. And you will find very often that a team relationship will be built between a good QA and a good developer, where that developer will bring the QA along so that QA can become a developer in their own right. And I see this often. It happens in our company often. And teach them to be a developer. Teach them to expect to start as a QA and work their way up. My recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And again, one more question, as the blend mode of working style is being there. So with the help of that, what will be the aspect of technical growth of an employee if he opt for fully remote working or blend mode of working due to this virtual reality?
Well, I think the biggest challenge you have when you're working fully remotely is isolation. And it's not just isolation from the people around you, but can very easily become isolation from an understanding of the purpose of what you're trying to perform. Almost no single person, even for a full stack developer, can create an application by themselves, unless it's a very small mobile app or something that's very easy to create, a game, something like this. It normally takes a team. And if you're going to be part of a team, you need to interact with that team, because everyone on that team needs to be on the same page, know where the goal is, know how they're supposed to get there, and working towards it as a group. I sometimes fear for some of our people that are in solitary, remote, full-time work at home situations, because they're so removed from their peers, from that ability to interact, from the nonverbal communication that we all take for granted when we're together, that I find that it takes at least 2 and sometimes 3 times as much effort to communicate to that person what they need to do and how they need to work with their peers than if they were together in the office working together. And so my biggest concern for remote work is this isolation. My biggest concern for full-time in the office is this dissatisfaction with the time away from family and friends.
Yes.
Hybrid presents us an opportunity to kind of marry those issues together and bring the best of both worlds to the best of our ability. So I personally am encouraging hybrid within our own company for exactly that reason, Dr. Balsari.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Swati, for further question answers.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a question from Archana P here. She wants to know that are we falling prey to a virtual world? Because the resulting we are getting far away from the reality. So what are your views on this?
Oh my, do you have another hour? In some ways, I am an old man. I look at Meta, and all I see is a waste of time. But young people look at Meta, and many see a whole new way to live their life where they can change the circumstances of who they are and how they are into what they want them to be. I think it's a proper concern for us as adults, as teachers, as business owners, as the educators of the next generation. I think it's a proper concern for us to need to be able to define the lines between reality and the virtual world. I do see a problem with that. I think it's a little too soon to understand how the problem is going to manifest itself, but I absolutely see the potential of addiction being in place with people who dislike their current set of circumstances so much that they choose to live their life connected to their meta virtual society and virtual friendships. As with all things, those with talent, those with strong inner compasses, those with strong minds and strong hearts probably won't fall prey to this. But the ones who are not strong may. It concerns me. And I have to look you in the eye right now and say I don't have a good answer for it. Not yet.
If you have any other questions from the participants, they can put in the chat box. Okay, I think that's all with the questions.
I think I wore them out, so sorry.
Thank you, David, sir, for your all these valuable inputs. Delivered this session according to our schedule. And I request you to accept a token of gratitude on behalf of the organizing team and guiding us. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again for being a part of this. I think you will be a part of the valedictory as well.
Let me take myself on mute while I say thank you very much for having me. I appreciate all the time that I have had an opportunity to interact with both the students and the faculty of YCCE, and I look forward to the opportunity to do it again. Thank you for your patience dealing with a Bagal Farangi.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Dear participants, we would starting the valedictory function soon, so please be in the join this room only.
Participants, we will be starting with the valedictory function in some time. Please remain in this meeting only. Please don't leave. Please remain in this room only. Warm greetings to everyone. I, Swati Nitnavare, is delighted to be the host for today's valedictory function of IET approved International Faculty Development on 21st Century Recent Trends, Challenges, and I'm so sorry, I'll just begin again. A warm greeting to everyone. I, Swati Nitnavare, is delighted to be the IET approved International Faculty Development Program on 21st Century Recent Trends, Challenges, Future Map, Transitions in Technological Generations, organized by International Relations Office, ICC Nagpur, in association with Department of Electronics Engineering. Endings are formally unappealing to me. More than beginning or end in life, I enjoy continuing. Continuing is my only focus for concern. With this, we begin with the valedictory function. Dear all, delighted to have with us Mr. David Henne from Codebase USA, with whom we heard right before this session. We also have Dr. Manali Sirsagar ma'am, Professor Computer Department YC, and Engineer Ketan Doshi from Bose Faiz UAE will be joining us shortly. Now, I request Dr. Shubhangi Ratkantiwar ma'am, convener of this FDP, to summarize this faculty development. Over to you, ma'am.
Honorable Chief guest of today's program, David Henne, Board of Directors, Codebase USA. Today's guest of honor, Ketan Doshi, Chief Executive Officer, VR Boss, Dubai. Dr. Uday Waghe, Principal YCC. Dr. Manali Ksirsagar, our beloved advisor. Dr. Rajesh Thakre, Head of Department of Electronics Engineering and co-convener of this program. Organizing committee members and all dear participants. I am Dr. Shubhangi Ratkantiwar. I am working as professor with Department of Electronics Engineering and currently working as Dean International Relations at YCC and convener of this faculty development program. We at International Relations Office have been striving towards strengthening the innovation ecosystem at YCC from global perspective. This faculty development program was specifically designed to serve as a common platform for fostering the interaction and networking between the Indian faculty members with prominent intellectuals, academicians, scientists from world-leading universities and industries. We had a global representation of our speakers from USA, Austria, Australia, Botswana, Bangladesh, Kuwait, and India. Supporting the main objective of this FTP, all the speakers presented their future roadmaps for transitions in the technological generations in various disciplines. Day 1 of this FDP started with the session of Dr. Ramesh Agarwal, who is from Washington University, USA. The second session of this day was delivered by Dr. Krishna Vedula, who is Executive Director, Indo-UNIRSER Collaboration for Engineering Education and an Emeritus Professor at University of Massachusetts Lowell, USA. And the third session was delivered by Dr. James Conrad, who is a professor at University of North Carolina, USA. Date with wonderful of sessions August. Dr. Digvijay Nath from IISc Bangalore and Engineer Nitin Birla from Kuwait Gulf Oil Company. Dr. James Conrad, Dr. Aviral Srivastav and Dr. Rajiv Shore from University of Queensland, Australia touched upon various aspects of research on autonomous vehicles. On the day 3, Dr. Shamim Mamun from Jahangirnagar University, Bangladesh enlightened us with visually observable disease detection from face in Society 5.2 challenges and research gap. And Dr. Sanjay Kallapur from Indian School of Business threw light on basic facts of developing world-class organization, and he also highlighted his contribution in the top university in the world, including Harvard University USA, Purdue University USA, and National University Singapore, and also his research contribution in Indian School of Business, India thereafter. Topic of his presentation was building a world-class educational institution in India, and he suggested to enhance the academic collaboration with the best ranked institutions to lead with the insightful roadmap and action plans, include the SWOT analysis and also the competitive analysis, hire the best faculty, diversify the staff to foster the innovations, focus on research, improve the engagement level and monetary performances, and also increase the motivation among the faculty members. Day 4 started with strong emphasis on mathematical sophistication by Dr. Hemant Pendharkar from University of South Florida, the university which ranked first position based on its research activities in, followed by the wonderful sessions by engineer Sachin Maske from Botswana and amazing research sharing by Vishwesh Kurane from Purdue University. Participants again experienced delightful and enriching moments on the 5th day of this faculty development program when the first speaker, Dr. Anisha Kalra, who is working as scientist in Infineon, Austria, shared her magnificent research journey, and Dr. Shashwat Ratkantiwar highlighted his roadmap for transition in the technological generation in gallium nitride field, and Dr. Chetan Ralekar from MIT, USA discussed various and important aspects of application of the machine learning in medical image processing. On behalf of International Relations Office, I extend the heartiest vote of thanks and deepest gratitude to all the 17 distinguished speakers at this 6-day-long FDP for their great scientific input and for many fruitful discussions and scientific interaction and their sharing with us their findings and opinions. Their presence and enlightening words help magnify our cause in the best possible way. Our FDP was a huge success, and all thanks to their spectacular presentations that inspired more than 438 participants attending the FDP. The goal for the faculty participants in this FDP was to update their multidisciplinary knowledge, give vent to ingenious ideas, strive toward high quality research, and get involved in the academic collaboration at national and international level. In essence, this FDP aimed to provide the participants from diverse engineering disciplines with broad perspective and a vision for enhancing their research and development activities. Today is the last day of this FDP, and I hope that these 6 days gave all the faculty participants unforgettable experiences in terms of knowledge, research, and experiences. And I am confident that they must have had enriching takeaways from every session. We had more than 400 faculty participants from 10 Indian states and 2 other countries in all the sessions in this FDP. it is fair to conclude that the conference was a great success. An event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheel starts rolling months ago and it requires a lot of planning and execution, and I have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues at YCC. So many people have contributed in so many ways to turn this event into smoothly running meeting with many interesting presentations and very good atmosphere for discussion and networking. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and their willingness to take on the completion of their task beyond their comfort zones. Grand success of this faculty development program is mainly due to our teamwork, which has paved way for organizing more international events on regular basis. I thank David Hannay from bottom of my heart for taking time from his busy schedule to be keynote speaker and accepting our invitation as chief guest of the valedictory session. Sir, your presence and enlightening words helped magnify our cause in best possible way. All thanks to your spectacular presentation that inspired all the participants. Everyone here got impressed by your deep knowledge of the subject and your remarkable presenting style. Thank you, sir, and thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. It is always great listening to you, and I'm sure all people present here would be agreeing with your words. Moving on, I invite Dr. Manali Shirsagar, ma'am, Professor Computer Tech Department, YCC, to guide us. Over to you, Manali Shirsagar, ma'am.
Thanks a lot. Good morning, all. The distinguished guest of today's function, Engineer David, and Engineer Ketan Doshi, our own principal, Dr. Uday Waghe, convener of the this 1 week FDP, Dr. Shubhangi Ratkantiwar. At the outset, I congratulate Dr. Shubhangi and her team for organizing such a wonderful international FDP, which is really, as she aptly said, is not an overnight job. I know that we have been striving for such kind of event for a while now, and I think this is the time to place on record the efforts and contribution of Dr. Shubhangi and her team in gathering this galaxy of distinguished speakers to this forum and organizing such a wonderful FDP. As per the new latest UGC guidelines regarding the internationalization of education, I would like to brief the August gathering that the time is ripe when YCC and, for that matter, all the other higher educational institutions, owing to the National Education Policy 2020, are supposed to take their education to the international level, or I can say the standard should be enhanced, and that is best possible when you join hands with the foreign educational institutions and industries. And that is how together we can achieve the goal of internationalization of education. And now, since the criteria for joining hands with the foreign universities has been made from 500 to 1,000, first 1,000 foreign universities, I think the doors are wide open for every higher educational institution in India to internationalize their education by way of twinning of the degrees, by way of joint degrees, by way of dual degrees, wherein minimum of 30% credits to maximum of 30% credits are to be completed physically on the campuses of foreign universities. And I feel that that's really a welcome step. And as far as YCC is concerned, I think by way of this type of FDP, Dr. Shubhangi has really taken the first step towards the internationalization, because through the interactions of our faculty members during this 6 days FDP, I think our faculty members are also pretty clear about what is happening around and what is happening at the global level. And I think they can receive it well and try to join hands with all these distinguished faculty members from different universities, and can try and strive for having joint projects, maybe joint publications, joint FDPs, and maybe we can take help of these distinguished people, distinguished academicians in, internationalizing our syllabus, because whatever is in vogue, whatever is trending, whatever is needed by our students and faculty member to adopt, I think this is the right time and this is the right forum from where we can really start our activities towards internationalization. And I'm really thankful to one and all distinguished speakers for accepting our invitation and being so much accommodative, because it's the time which is the time at Indian time and your time. It has really been, I can understand it has really been very much difficult for you to shift towards the night all the sessions and delivering it with the same zeal and enthusiasm, while we were doing it during our daytime when the productivity is at its peak. So I'm really thankful for that also, for the time zone difference, and for being so accommodative and being so kind enough to accept our invitation. I really appreciate the gesture of all the distinguished speakers who are from different universities. And I request you all, and I am quite hopeful that this bond, this relation has just begun. And we look forward to your association, your continued association in the years to come. So once again, I congratulate Dr. Shubhangi and the whole team. And thank you so much, everyone, for giving me an opportunity to express my feelings on this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your informative words. Now I request our chief guest, Engineer David Henney, to get in touch with us and share his views. David, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for having the patience to listen to me today, first and foremost. And I want to thank YCCE, Dr. Rath Kantawar, Dr. Belsari, and all of the other members of the staff and the students who have helped as well in extending the courtesy to someone like me to participate in an event and in an organization like Yeshwantrao Chavan College of Engineering in Nagpur. To me, it's a gift. And the gift is the ability to give back some of my experience, some of my failures, some of my successes, so that the next generation can see that success is possible. Failure is not forever. And that I have had the opportunity, by the grace of these individuals, to share that with the students. It's not only a gift for me, but it's a blessing. And I can't thank YCCE, the professors, the IRO enough for the opportunity that they have extended to me to allow me to speak to their students. It is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I enjoy very much. Hopefully, the opportunity to do it again will come someday again. But in the meantime, I want to leave the thought. YCCE and the opportunity to speak to these students and the faculty has had as much impact on me as I hope I have had on them. And I consider myself blessed for having experienced it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, sir. I think we all are here are also fortunate to have you as a part of this FDP. Thank you for being a part of it. Moving ahead, we were supposed to join by engineer Ketan Doshi from UAE, but I think due to some technical error, he's unable to join. So moving forward, we will take feedback from the participants. Over to you, Belsare ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much, Swati. I'm Dr. Amoli Belsare from YCC. Welcome you to one of the most important parts of the FDP, that is views, experiences, and overall feedback about the FDP from our esteemed participants. This will definitely boost the enthusiasm of the organizing team to showcase the different avenues and programs to the world from YCC in a better way ahead. So, without much time, I would like to call our sincere and enthusiastic participants to express the FDP learnings from their perspective. So, we are happy to have first review from Ms. Shilpa Birla from British Council, Kuwait. So, over to you, Shilpa ma'am. Shilpa ma'am. I request host Atish Peshattiwa sir to please just give permission to unmute herself. Yes, Ms. Shilpa, you can proceed. I think due to some technical issues, she could not unmute herself. So we will move towards the next feedback, and then we will come back to Shilpa ma'am. I would like to invite now Swapna Narlawar, Senior Software Developer from State of Wisconsin, USA, for her experience during this week. Over to you, Swapna ma'am. Hello, am I audible? Swapna ma'am? Okay, next we are having Nitya Purnima from India, who is Assistant Professor, Mechanical Department, BMSIT, Bangalore. Over to you, Nitya. Peshattiwa sir, I request you to please allow Nitya Purnima to unmute herself.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, this is Nitya from BMS IT. I'm currently a faculty of Mechanical Engineering Department. I am very, very happy to be a part of this FTP program. I want to express my sincere gratitude to Shubhangi ma'am and her team for helping me to enroll for this FTP. This FTP has been definitely a great takeaway for me because there has been a vast knowledge on, let it be on the terrain vehicle, or let it be on the squid control robots, or let it be on astrophysics, or let it be on the semiconductors, the gallium nitride, the power electronics, optoelectronics, or let it be even the laughing yoga or the Indian Vedics that was reintroduced to us. So all these has been a great reintroduction. Some concepts have been really fantastic in rethinking or revamping for us in trying to get our ideas focused on those areas where we can think in a different way. Thank you, Shubhangi ma'am, so much for this workshop. This workshop has been a great yarn for everybody. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Nitya, for your views. Now I would again like to invite Shilpa Birla ma'am. Over to you, Shilpa ma'am. Hello. So next we are having with us Tanvi Akar from Mineral Resource Department, Mining Surveyor, Devas, MP, India. Over to you, Tanvi.
Hello.
Yes, please, Tanvi.
Yes, this is Tanvi Apte from Mineral Resources Department, MP, as surveyor. As a working professional, we can all connect and understand more about this trending and global topic. The significance of ethics, as mentioned by David Sir in occupations, is very true. Being a civil engineer, it never occurred to me about learning a coding language, but the involvement of artificial intelligence in almost all sectors has been very amazing and appealing for us. This session has inspired me to go for learning Python, as I was thinking about learning it from quite some time. The sessions were very informative and vibrant. I was fortunate enough to be part of them. Thank you so much. Thank you, YCC and Shubhangi ma'am.
Thank you so much, Tanvi, for your views. Without self-evaluation and feedback, there would not be any success of event. So I'm happy to invite our own Dr. Prachi Parsotkar to share her learnings from this FDP. Over to you, Prachi. Peshattiwal sir, please allow Prachi ma'am to unmute herself.
Thank you, madam, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I would like to this was
hello, Prachi, your voice is breaking. Hello, hello.
In this I can say that now I'm audible. In true sense, collab of all great intellects. In spite of time zone difference, I have seen that all speakers were very interactive. We have learned many necessary aspects of recent trends and opportunities in autonomous vehicle like deep learning, nanotechnology, and again, ethics in occupation. Many things we have learned. And especially, I want to mention here that all speakers have truly proven the ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. And through this FDP, I have learned a lot. Thank you very much. And once I would like to congratulate complete for success organization.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prachi, for your feedback. Now I again request Ms. Shilpa Birla from British Council, Kuwait. Over to you, Shilpa ma'am. You can unmute yourself now. Shilpa ma'am, are you there? Okay, we would next invite Swapna Narlawar, senior software developer from state of Wisconsin, USA, for her experiences during this week. Over to Swapna ma'am.
Hello everyone. I would like to thank all of you for organizing this excellent faculty development program and providing us with the possibility to attend it virtually. I thoroughly enjoyed the range of topics that speakers covered and the fact that the speakers were from both academia and industry. I look forward to attend the events like this in future as well. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Swapna. Further, I would like to call Nandini Sakre for her experience as a student coordinator for the event. Over to you, Nandini.
Hello, greetings everyone. Thank you so much, IRO committee, for organizing such great sessions. The presentations were just what I needed to boost my change in mindset and working practices. I just wanted to let you guys know that how much I appreciated your structured approach to such wide topics with such fantastic takeaways, which I can put it into practice. For this wonderful opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Nandini, for your enthusiastic participation. In the end, I would like to invite anyone who wants to share his or her views in their learnings throughout this week. Please write your name in the chat box so that we can share the unmute rights to you. Peshaktiva sir, please see that Shilpa ma'am is not able to unmute herself. Please give her rights to unmute herself. Yes, Dr. Pradnya Mathurkar. Peshaktiva sir, please give rights to Pradnya Mathurkar to unmute herself. Ma'am, please introduce yourself first and then you can share your views.
May I audible, sir? Ma'am,
yes,
may I audible?
Yes, 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 yes.
Everyone, good morning to all of you. And I am Dr. Pradnya from RGCR Nagpur. I am attending this FDPD regularly and very well organized and informative session we have to attend. I congratulate all the team for success of this FDP. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Pradnya Mathurkar, for your words. It really boosts our enthusiasm in organizing this kind of workshop and programs. Okay, we are having with us Professor Nitin Birla. Over to you, sir, please.
Hi, just a minute.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not able to unmute my phone. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
thank you
yes,
so much.
Ma'am. Yes,
yes, for troubling you. And, yeah, good afternoon, all the honorable persons, organizers, advisors, all India and YCC faculties, and eminent speakers from global communities. A very good afternoon. Today, I have been given the opportunity to provide feedback on subject conference, and which is a very difficult task. However, I will do my best. First of all, thanks for all the initiative and creating a knowledge pool, which will drive through 21st century. The first decision has enlightened and created a broad knowledge bank, which will be living guide for all the present and future faculties. The conference has covered relevant topics, which give a deep understanding on various subjects like automation in mobility, technology in agriculture, purpose and support of PhD programs, shaping of institutions, India startups, institutional roles, responsibilities, and expectations, and so on. Being a faculty member, I deeply understand and acknowledge the importance and objectives of such golden opportunity, which nobody should miss, because this is essentially required to build a community through the students and the generations to come. Thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you so much, Shilpa ma'am, for your kind words.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Is anyone else would like to share his views? Okay, so thank you, dear participants, for encouraging us. We would be happy to organize such programs in near future too also. So thank you, and over to you, Swati.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Dr. Uday Waghe, Principal YCC, for his presidential address. I think because of some technical issue, he is unable to join. We were also supposed to join by Dr. P.K. Dakwe, Registrar YCC, but I think he is also facing some network issue. So moving forward, I would like to invite Dr. R.D. Thakre, Head of the Department, Electronics Engineering Department, YCC, for his vote of thanks.
Hello, whether I'm audible?
Thakre, sir?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes. Good morning, all. I feel honored and privileged to given an opportunity to propose a vote of thanks. I'm Dr. Rajesh Thakre, Professor, Head of the Electronics Engineering Department, on behalf of Organizing Committee of this Faculty Development Program. I would like to acknowledge the personalities who have provided the support and who have been with us during this 6-month-long journey in planning and executing the entire event. I would like to thank our honorable management, especially our Chief Advisor, Honorable Vrinda Madam, for giving us opportunity to organize this faculty development program at a global level. Thank you, Madam. My heartfelt thanks to our chief guest, David Henny, sir, for sharing his valuable time in addressing us today. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation as a keynote speaker in the valedictory program. It must be very late and close to midnight in the US. We truly appreciate the efforts you have taken for us in delivering this presentation. I will thank today's chief guest of honor, Ketan Doshi, sir, CEO, VR Bose FJE UAE, for his virtual presence. Thanks are due to Dr. Uday Waghe, sir, our beloved principal, for helping us in smoothing the obtaining the necessary administration approval for organizing this event and for being with us and delivering the welcome address. His words were motivating for all of us. Words are not enough to thank respected Dr. Manali Sirsagar Madam. Organizing a global level FDP was a dream that will come true because of her constant guidance and support. Thanks, ma'am, for supporting our idea and creating an opportunity to interact with one of the best intellectual minds across the world. I convey my deep regards and heart thank all invited speakers for accepting our invitation. we proudly share the speakers for this FDP for the eminent universities and industries across the globe. I would like to mention Dr. Krishna Vedula, Dr. Jim Cornard, Dr. Ramesh Agrawal, Dr. Aviral Srivastav, Dr. Raju Sore, Dr. Hemant Pendarkar, Dr. Shamim Manu, Dr. Digvijay Nath, Dr. Anisha Karla, Engineer Nitin Birla, Dr. Vishwesh Korane, Dr. Sanjay Kalpure, Engineer Sachin Maske, Dr. Chetan Ralekar, Dr. David Haney, Engineer Ketan Doshi, Dr. Shashwat Ratkantiwar. I would like to thank Dr. Rakhi Wajgi, HOD CT, and Professor Manish Hadaf for helping us with the technical support. An event of this dimension cannot be happened overnight. The wheels start rolling many months in advance. We have been more than fortunate to have Dr. Shubhangi Ratkantiwar as a convener of this program, without whom a global level FDP could not have been possible. As a Dean and International Relations Officer, she has been striving towards bolstering the innovation ecosystem at YCC from a global perspective. We are grateful to you, ma'am. My special thanks to Dr. Professor for his gracious presence. I am very much thankful to all our faculty, colleagues, non-teaching staff members who have always stand by us through the thick and thin organizing this FDP. I would like to give a special thanks to Professor Atish Peshettiwar sir and the entire technical committee for taking a tireless effort to meet the real-time challenges of smoothly conducting this program in fully online mode. I take this opportunity to Professor Ajinkya Adlabatkar, Professor Yogesh Khalde for publishing this event at various stages. I thank Swati Nitnarmay Madam and her graceful anchoring. Finally, I feel proud and thank all our organizing committee members, dedicated students, volunteers for making this dreamful event happen successfully. I cannot thank to everyone enough for the involvement they have shown and the willingness they have expressed to make on the completion of tasks beyond their comfort zone. Last but not least, I would thank all the participants for getting concerned with us in such a large number, which is a reflection of this success of this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We are indeed thankful to each and every person who is involved in this FTP for their involvement and making this FTP a great success. Now I would like to announce the best speaker and best participant. Nitin Birla sir has been chosen as the best speaker of the FTP. Congratulations, sir. And we have Dr. Chaya Khandelwal, who has been chosen as the best participant of our FTP. Lastly, I want to announce to all participants that the certificates for this will be available to you on a drive link on your mail. Thank you for your patient listening, and thank you for listening to all the sessions patiently throughout this FTP. Thank you, President. Dear participants, listen all participants, I request you all to turn on your camera so that we can have a group photo. Dear participants, please turn on your cameras for a group photograph.
Just a minute.
Just give me a moment. Please stay there. Yes, I do. We are having a technical problem with the camera, but stay there, everyone. Okay, thank you all participants.